New books.
I know.
A lot of,
You're like pumping out a book like once every 3 weeks. It's amazing how you do that. Amazing.
I'm trying to keep a goal of 2 per year, and have been just keeping up. So, yeah, having fun.
Well, you deserve it, my friend. You deserve all the success you have. We got 15 seconds here. Hey, who just stepped in? Hey, Game Vet, good to have you here. Sweet Donnie C is here. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. I'm going to mute your mic, Preston. We're going to go live in 5 seconds here on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show across our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. One of the hardest working people in ufology is here tonight. As researcher, writer, and successful author, Preston Dennett returns to talk about UFOs, ET contact, and the strange stories where people are having sightings and experiences. Preston began investigating UFOs and the paranormal in 1986 when he discovered that his family, friends, and co-workers were having dramatic unexplained encounters. Since then, he has interviewed hundreds of witnesses, investigated a wide variety of paranormal phenomena. He has worked with MUFON. He's a ghost hunter, a paranormal researcher, and literally he's got about almost 30 books out there and more than 100 articles about the subject. His website is PrestonDennett.weebly.com. Preston, it's been a while since we had you on Spaced Out Radio, man, but I am so glad to have you back. How you been?
I've been good. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, doing pretty good.
Preston, for people who are unfamiliar with your work, and I'm sure there's a few out there, especially more in the mainstream, how fun is this when you are hanging on out and you are finding out about these topics? Because every story is so different. I mean, is that the fun of it all, is hearing all of these incredible stories?
Yeah, for sure. There's a real sense of wonder to it all, knowing that this is a true subject, that it's evolving, that we don't know everything about it. There's surprises around every corner. The field of UFOs in particular has just got levels and levels to it, and it's very complex, deceptively so, I think. I got into this field really naive. Thought, this is interesting. I had no idea there was a cover-up. I didn't realize that there were greedy hoaxsters out there, ready to try and trick you, or that millions of people were trying to deal with honest-to-God encounters of being taken on board, face-to-face contact, real sightings, landings, the whole deal.
Preston, for the people out there who are familiar with this topic, okay, we know that there is something going on. The phenomena is real. Too many people have had some incredible experiences, and it's just not one or two. We're talking hundreds, if not thousands, tens of thousands. From little orbs of light in the sky to face-to-face encounters with extraterrestrials. When you are choosing stories to write about, how do you select the ones that are going to be worth the research?
Well, there's, I think, a number of considerations. I have to feel like this is a true story, obviously, that they're not lying to me. And I feel like it has to contribute something new to our understanding of the subject or have some unique feature to it. Otherwise, it's just the same old story we've heard a million times before. But really, it's it's the first-hand story itself. It's the person's life. It's their whole emotional reaction to it. There's a lot of considerations for sure. But when I get a really unusual story, I'm like, wow. And if there's witnesses and some corroborating evidence, I'm like, that's what I love, being surprised myself.
I got to ask you this, okay? You have covered a plethora of topics regarding UFOs, ET contact. You're not afraid to delve into the personal stories, the darker stories, the incredibly enlightening stories regarding this phenomena. Are there any stories out there or any subjects regarding UFOs that you just will not cover?
Well, I don't want to say that. There's none out there, no, because I want to look at it all, and I don't think we can solve any mysteries by ignoring evidence. I do shy away from this, very fringy conspiracy stuff that's not supported by eyewitness testimony, because occasionally someone will come out on the field and make a big splash with a completely unique story. I'm like, wow, this is amazing, but I've never heard anything like this. And that's when I kind of step back a little bit. But no, it's, I want to know what's going on. I truly do think we're dealing with extraterrestrials in the classic sense. I know there's a lot of people out there who think that, this might not be extraterrestrial. It might be something else, a phenomena that wears various masks. And I think some of these cases probably do fit that category, but mostly I think we're dealing with ETs in the classic sense.
Me too. The reason why I asked you that, okay, is when it comes to anything that is conspiratorial, and let's face it, the UFO topic is still a little bit conspiratorial, okay? They always seem to go down some pretty rash runs, whether it's the Illuminati, it's Bilderbergers, it's government implantations, it's, anything to do with missing people, missing children, hurting children, so to speak. And people just seem to take it to a whole new level of weird, strange, and unprovable stories. I'm not saying it's not going on, but right now it's unprovable. How do you base yourself on keeping yourself level-headed enough to make sure that, the stories that you are going through, you're not going to go down one of those tangents, if we could call it that?
Yeah, I've had to be actually really careful because there's, particularly in terms of photographs, you go out on the internet and there's an enormous number of clearly hoaxed photographs, videos. And I don't even know how to deal with that sort of plethora of disinformation. It's a real problem. So, yeah, you have to be very, very careful. A lot of the people that I've interviewed who end up in my books are people who've contacted me after reading my books, perhaps, or hearing me on the radio, or I've worked with them, or they've been referred by friends, or I speak at a convention and they come up to me. So there's a whole kind of vetting process, I think, when you interview people about this subject.
Yeah, that makes sense. Preston Dennett is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Preston, with all the talk over the last couple of years about disclosure, UFOs, what the U.S. government knows, the TTSA, and whatever direction they have tried to lure people, okay, some for the good, some for, I believe, not so good, okay, how has this affected your research in regards to the belief that there is some sort of phenomena going on?
Well, starting from the very beginning in 1986, when I started to where we are now, there is definitely a difference. This recent disclosures hasn't made this splash. I think it should have. And I asked people about it. Did you hear? UFOs are real, and the government said so. Your average Joe on the street, people at work, my friends, who aren't really into this subject. And it kind of just barely touched the periphery of their consciousness. Yeah, they heard about it, but they have their other interests. So I'm a little bit kind of, yeah, we're making progress, but it's like pulling teeth. And Not sure what it's going to take. I think what we're really going to need to really make a splash in the sort of mainstream in terms of convincing skeptics is we need to see the craft. We need the bodies. I'm sure we're going to get some pictures shortly coming down the road, bits of metal perhaps, because the Pentagon did say, quote, otherworldly vehicles, material from otherworldly vehicles. That's huge. That's movement we've never had before since I've been in this field. So I'm pretty excited about what's coming down the road, but I don't think it's going to have a big difference until we see the craft.
Okay, so I agree with you, but there's a lot of people out there who are tired of the stories. They're tired of the firsthand accounts, firsthand experiences. They're tired of videos of little dots in the sky that could be birds, could be drones, could be stars with shaky cameras. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, when we look at that and we take it, we want that government confirmation. It's like it's the next step and everybody's pushing for it. But my question to you is, since when are we supposed to trust spooks regarding this? Ex-CIA members, ex-NSA members, ex-government officials. And we're supposed to allow them to have our best interests at heart? You've been in this field a long time now, almost 30 years. How does that make you feel when you see people out there, saying, hey, you got to trust this guy. He worked for the CIA, or trust that guy because, he worked for the NSA.
Yeah, it is a problem. There's been a lot of distrust with the government on this subject. They bungled it from the very beginning. They took our tax dollars and made UFO witnesses look like liars, hoaxers on drugs, and completely debunked this subject when they knew full well it was real. So they have painted themselves into a corner to a large extent, I think. This is one of the reasons for the continuing cover-up. And there's a lot of distrust of government because of this. And I think if our government, this is one of the forces, I think, behind disclosure. They want to remain in control of the subject. And if they don't start disclosing and saying, yeah, we know it's real, because we all know it's real, people will no longer have any trust in them whatsoever. And at this point, yeah, disclosure would be nice. A nice announcement would be great. But in essence, disclosures, happened because so many people have already had encounters. UFOs have gone to the people themselves and just showed themselves. So a certain extent, our government is lagging behind. And I'm very disappointed in how they've dealt with this whole subject overall.
How would you have dealt with it?
I think from the beginning, when they announced the Roswell UFO crash, that press release, we should never have retracted it. Because if we could have poured our attention, our money, our best scientific minds, and actually faced this subject, transparent, all we need is, our government to be truthful and forthcoming. It's pretty darn simple. And that's what I think should have been done, and it would have changed everything. And we would have actually progressed in this field and probably would have had open official contact by this point.
Really? You think we would have had contact by this point?
I do. And the reason I say that is because we, in essence, already have. If you believe the reports coming from, multiple whistleblowers, such as the Eisenhower incident at Edwards Air Force Base in 1954, where he supposedly met with ETs. There's continuing information coming about that seems to validate it. Not to mention other meetings at Holloman Air Force Base and other Air Force bases. So I think our government has, already had open official contact and diplomatic relations to a certain degree. But again, haven't been forthcoming, haven't been truthful, have not released the technology that they've gotten from this. And this is why ETs are going to the people and showing themselves over like drive-in movies. That's my latest book, or schoolyards. It's a recent book. They're doing a grassroots campaign of publicity to announce their presence, in my opinion, for forthcoming open official contact. I think that's what they're pushing towards.
Okay, so that states that extraterrestrials or of a positive manner, and yet we keep hearing this threat narrative. Is that
Right.
governmental? Is that Hollywood?
I think it's coming from different directions. There's a natural fear of the unknown, and I think that's one reason we're pretty fear-based in our society, and that's partly the media, that's partly us. We love a little good scare. So I think that's one direction of this. Another is the ETs themselves are kidnapping people at night, coming to their bedrooms, pulling them off highways and into UFOs. And no matter how you slice that, that's not necessarily a friendly act, no matter what they're doing. And thirdly, I think there is a narrative to sort of look at ETs as a threat. And from a government perspective, from a military perspective, I kind of get it. These guys are hovering over our military bases. They're shutting off our nuclear missiles. They are outdistancing every aircraft we have. From a military standpoint, you have to look at this as a national security issue, for sure. But as far as them being, are they going to take over? Are they hostile? Are we looking at a very dim future, like some UFO researchers have said? I doubt it. I think they've been here far too long. I don't see any evidence that they're going to take over. They kind of already have. They've been manipulating our genetics, I think, for years and centuries, if not millennia. And when someone's taken on board a craft, what happens? Yeah, it's scary. Apparently against people's will in a lot of cases. They're physically examined. It's sometimes painful. But I have to tell you, I've got 300 documented cases of people being physically healed. I think it's a lot more than that. It's not at all uncommon for people to be taken to the engine room and shown how these objects work and told we don't need fossil fuels. And they're given a very positive message in terms of, alternative energies. And beyond that, they are given messages about healing or, spiritual messages of some kind. Past lives, out-of-body experiences. People come away from their experiences spiritually awakened in a way that's pretty darn consistent. So, and what I don't see is sadism and torture. Not every case is nice. I'm not going to say that, every ET is our friend, but it would be much easier to build a case that humans are evil or demonic or trying to take over than extraterrestrials.
That's a big subject to have with people. And, one of the things that we have always discussed on this show is whether or not the public is ready for full-on ET contact. And that is a great debate, which I think many governments of the world have talked about. Throw everything aside, the personal egos, the personal countries, military size. My jet is bigger than your jet kind of thing, okay? And my bomb is bigger than yours. I think in the end, there's a lot of discussion about what would happen if there was an invasion, whether it's a positive one or a negative one, and how would we deal with that? Many people out there, myself included, feel that the society around the world is not ready for any sort of ET contact. I think personally it would, probably cause some sort of economic collapse, if not depression. I think there's going to be a large amount of society that gets suicidal, a large part of society that gets violent, whether it's due to religious beliefs or just personal fear. I don't think disclosure or having extraterrestrials at this time is a healthy thing for the almost 8 billion people on this planet, because there's a lot of fear out there.
Yeah, well, the fact is they are out there. We are not alone. That's just not a fact that we can escape from. They are here. They've been here for a very long time, and to sort of exclude ourselves from this isolation policy isn't going to work, because it's just not tenable. They've been around for a very long time. They've been showing themselves to large groups of people. Yeah, there's certainly going to be elements of people who are going to have a very difficult time adjusting. I don't think ETs are going to come over and say, okay, this is, we're your alien overlords. I don't think that's what we're going to see at all. I think we're going to see just a very sort of step-by-step acclimatizing us to their presence in ways like we've already seen with the Phoenix Lights and the Belgium wave and numerous waves going down through history. They are clearly putting on a publicity campaign in these cases. There's no way around it. So I can't see this going on forever. At some point, they are going to, I think, land, and there will be relations. I don't think they're going to, take over. They might share knowledge. It's going to have some disruptions on religion and economics, of course, but humanity's been very adaptable, and we've had a lot of things we've had to deal with, and this will be just one other thing.
Where do you think they're coming from? Are they coming from another planet? Are they coming from another solar system? Are they coming from the future? Are these future humans what we're looking at? Are they ultra-terrestrials? What's your opinion of this?
Yeah, well, this is a big umbrella. So often, people say, there's time travelers, there's interdimensional beings, there's demonic spirits, and all of this is true. And sometimes all of these get lumped under the UFO umbrella. But I think by and large, when we talk about people seeing craft in the sky, we're dealing with biological beings from other planets who are like us. And no, we don't know precisely where they come from. People have asked. They've been very tight-lipped. I've talked to people. One couple, they were invited on board. It wasn't actually a scary experience in Sedona, Arizona. And they asked specifically, where are you from? And they said, we're from a place you don't know about yet. And another got the answer, it's not important, or you wouldn't understand. So they're often very coy about where they come from. Zeta Reticula has come up in other cases, not just the Betty and Barney Hill case. And, definitely ETs have named star systems or galaxies specifically, whether it's, Orion or Cygnus or Andromeda or what have you. But we don't know. What it comes down to, officially, we don't know. Maybe in secret government circles they do. I think there's probably some evidence these guys, not just Greys, but this whole gamut of ETs we're dealing with, do have the ability to time travel, or do have the ability to move through what we would consider, interdimensionally. So it gets to be pretty hard to pin down where these guys are from. But if we have their bodies, if we have these craft, and I think we do, I think we've got enough whistleblower accounts to say that we do, then we know that these are beings like us from other planets, which makes perfect logical sense, because there's no way we're the center of the universe. That wouldn't make any sense at all, that we're the only beings in this entire physical realm.
We got about 45 seconds. Is it ego on our part, Preston?
Yeah, there's a very strong resistance to this subject. And I think it's partly because our government has really done a concerted campaign to debunk it. But it's also partly because, we think that we're the center of the universe. That's what we've seen throughout history, and we've always been proven wrong.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And the fact is, where's the answers lie? Is it in the people? Is it in the governments? Is it in the militaries? We really don't know. We want to know. We think we know. But then we kind of screw it up because we're really, really good at that. Preston, I'm going to get you to hold on because we are going to go to break here at the top of the, or at the bottom of the hour. Boy, my clock's screwed up already. Bottom of the hour break here with Preston Dennett. His website, Preston Dennett, damn it. I can't speak all of a sudden. PrestonDennett.weebly.com. There it is. I finally got it out. We're into some great UFO stories tonight. UFOs at drive-ins? Oh, yeah. We're going to touch on that next on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're clear. I got tongue-tied there, man. I was like boxing with myself.
Hey, I do that whenever I get super enthusiastic or excited. I have to be careful.
I know. My friend, I'm going to get you to just sit tight for a couple seconds. I just got to go blow my nose here because I apparently have some nose goblins hanging on out that I got to get rid of. I'll be right back.
All right.
All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Do.
So how long is our break here?
We got 5 minutes here, buddy. 5 minutes.
All right.
Yeah, we're doing good here. We're doing good. Except for this spot on my glasses that keeps catching my eye there. Hey, Randy Spur. Spur. Kubasa Nova. Good to have you here. That's a Ukrainian pronunciation, by the way.
Hey, I got some fans in Ukraine.
You got fans everywhere, man. You got fans everywhere. All right, let's see who else has jumped into the old chat room here. Snuck on in without me seeing them. Oh, that's about it. We're caught up. We is caught up. That's what I said. Spur L. Per or pair L. The Ukrainian way of saying kielbasa is kubasa. I'm Ukrainian. I know this. Good kielbasa has a lot of garlic in it. A lot of garlic. Hey, Bombshell Bomber, how are you? One of these days, Preston, I want a Canadian book, Canadian Experiences. You haven't done one of them yet.
No, I haven't. I've got some Canadian cases, though.
You're due. You're due.
I've got some Canadian driving cases, just so you know. Driving movies.
We're getting into this, man. I'm interested in this.
It's weird. I'm telling you, it kind of surprised me.
Dude, whatever you write about, it just amazes me because, so much of ufology is still stuck on Roswell, on Phoenix, on Kecksburg, and all of that. And here you are digging out all of these really, really cool stories, man. I love it. Love it. It's a breath of fresh air.
Hey, yeah, I appreciate it. That's kind of my specialty. Yeah, this one really surprised me, the whole driving one, because this didn't come from books. I was looking through all my books. I'm like, found maybe one or two cases in books. These were from, newspaper articles, mostly.
Mm-hmm. All right, we got just under or just over 1 minute here. I gotta get my unders, overs, and tops and bottoms figured out for tonight. I think that's my goal through this interview, is to try and get my tops, bottoms in order. Hi, little Deborah. Good to have you back. Remy Canadian, thanks for coming in. Satan is not the answer. He is the devil, Beelzebub. Haven't you heard Bohemian Rhapsody? It's all right in that song, man. Let's see. Hey, Project Blue Book, thank you for coming on in. Haven't seen you in our chat room in a while. Jarhead, thank you for joining us. Want to remind people, the Super Chat is open. It is a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. You can also join our Space Travelers Club at our website for $5 a month. Do a little shopping at the SOR Vault as well. Cable Guy Matt is here, everyone. Remember, you can get your free piece of coaxial cable autographed by Cable Guy Matt. Remember, you cannot buy these in stores. Limit one per household. And he's got a Halloween special on. You get 1.5 now. We'll be right back, Preston, with the music right now. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. I'm Dave Scott, hanging out in my beautiful studio here atop the mountains of central British Columbia. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to remind you that if you have missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Preston Dennett is our guest tonight on the Mighty SOR, and he's got about 758 books out about UFOs now. No, I'm teasing on that number, but Preston, you are seriously putting in a lot of research. You got a new book out, and everybody should check it on out. UFOs at the Drive-In. How did you come up with this topic, my friend?
Yeah, crazy. I've been in this field for a long time, and I have to tell you, this surprised me. Actually got a case very early on. A lady came into my office where I worked, Claudia, and found out I was a UFO researcher and told me this incredible story where she was at the Paramount Drive-In Theater in Southern California one evening with her parents and sister, and suddenly everyone was screaming, they're dropping their popcorn, they're screeching out, and her parents are staring up at not at the screen, right next to the screen. She looks out the window and there's this giant classic flying saucer. Said it was shiny silver like a spoon and making this kind of whooshing noise, little lights on it, kind of watching them watch the movie, and caused total panic. Doesn't quite remember what exactly happened. There's a little bit of amnesia involved with this incident, which actually turns out to be a thing with this in some cases. And it was years later they were on the radio, or they weren't on the radio, but they were listening to it. And this guy calls in and describes the same incident. She turns to her mom like, "We were there." And her mom's like, "Yeah." And Claudia's like, "Well, why didn't we ever talk about it? We didn't even remember it." It was just very strange. That's how it all began. And I've actually ran into 3 cases in a row writing, it was UFOs over Colorado. I'm like, okay, they are targeting drive-in theaters. What is going on here? Let's survey the literature. And that's when I got a real shock. Yeah, 100 cases.
Well, I guess we know where Siskel and Ebert are now.
Yeah. These are so weird. I mean, these are not normal sightings. I think if you're outside at night, you're a drive-in theater, you're probably more likely to see a UFO. Because, let's face it, you're out there for a couple of hours, 4 even. And there are a number of cases that do have what I would call a random flyby. But no, most of these cases, 70%, 80%, these objects drop down and come right next to the screen, right over the screen, perhaps on either side, over the parking lot itself, and just stay there. Not only stay there, they put on a show. And these are, there's nothing like this in the UFO literature in terms of large groups of people observing these objects this low, that close for that period of time. Because I was looking, maybe there's in there were 2, not like that. It's been happening at drive-in theaters since about 1950 onward.
Okay, so I got a story for you that I think you'll be really interested in. And that is, there's a Canadian artist out there. We just had him on the air last week, named Ashley McIsaac. And he's very famous across Canada. He's an award-winning fiddler playing Celtic music. And his sister, or his cousin, pardon me, actually caught 4 UFOs flying over his stage while he was performing.
There you go. Yeah, I think this is something they do. They're showing themselves off to groups of people that are large, but not like crazy large that it's going to shake the world.
Okay. So when you say crazy large, that would be like flying over the Super Bowl or Game 7 of the World Series.
Yeah, which, might happen. I'm not going to rule it out because these cases are not normal in terms of these are very brazen objects. They're brave. They're out there to be seen. They are putting on a show. No doubt about it. Here's a case which kind of clinched it for me in terms of, what are these guys doing? Hovering right next to the screen. This just doesn't make any sense. This comes from George Fawcett. He's a pretty good researcher. pioneering, and this was back in May of 1963. The Wellington Circle Twin, Medford, Massachusetts. Two glowing discs show up and kind of park in the sky right, not next to the screen this time, over the parking lot. And suddenly two more come and dip down even lower, and the original two lift up a little bit. And then two more come. So now we've got 6 objects in 2 columns. And then, darn it, 2 more come. Now we've got 8 objects in 2 separate columns. And for the next 45 minutes, these objects started to put on a display, rotating in this really weird way, like musical chairs. And a number of cases very similar to this, where there's no other explanation than they want to be seen.
Why drive-throughs or drive-throughs, drive-ins? You know,
Yeah.
is it because it's nighttime and there's bright lights going on? Do you believe it has to do with the gathering of the people?
Yeah, I started looking at all these theories. I'm like, maybe it's the movie. Let's look at the movies. Most people, I have to tell you, don't really remember the movie, but some do. And I don't think it's the movie itself. I don't think they're watching the movie. The Simpsons movie, Exorcist, Jurassic Park, King Kong, How the West Was Won. There's a wide variety of movies that people have seen these things at. But it's definitely an element of curiosity there, I think. Because if you look at drive-in theaters from, say, above, from an aerial view, they're super obvious. I mean, these are giant screens, 100 feet tall, 50 feet wide. And I would think visible from pretty far out there in outer space. UFOs are all about computers and screens anyway, so I think there's an element that does draw them in, but that ultimately they are using this as an opportunity to announce their presence.
Are people getting abducted while at the drive-ins?
Don't think so. These are pretty much what we would call close encounters of the first kind, though there's a handful of cases, quite a good size actually, of where the screen has been affected or the speakers. And there's a couple of cases that definitely have me questioning. One guy I was able to correspond with directly, Scott Santa, had an experience at the Ascot Drive-In Theater, and this is in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, where this very large triangular-shaped object came right over the theater, knocked out the screen. I mean, it shut off. The electricity went out in the entire theater. All the lights went off in the snack stand, everywhere around, every car. It was complete darkness as this thing just moved overhead. They got out of the car. They were staring at it. People were dumbfounded, kind of zombified, he said, almost entranced. His ears popped, and it just moved overhead silently. And then as soon as it leaves the theater, just like a switch is flipped, everything comes back on. Boom, the movie starts playing. The snack stand is back on. Any lights that were off are now back on. And everyone just completely forgot what happened. There was complete amnesia, including with, Scott himself. He remembers, afterwards going to the snack stand, the restroom. No one was talking about it. Everyone was acting like it never happened. And he never remembered a thing until a couple of years later. He's at a bookstore and saw a book by Edward Ruppelt, head of Project Blue Book, Unidentified Flying Objects. Saw that word, and this just flooded back into his head. And I know that sounds weird, but I have to tell you, it's like the case with my coworker Claudia. There's an element of amnesia to some of these cases, and I wonder, perhaps, could this have been a mass abduction? I don't know. I don't think so. I think these are mostly close encounters of the first kind. But in a weird way, you could call these close encounters of the fifth kind. We're calling these things down, in essence, with drive-in movies. This would be a great method to call them down, I think.
Tell us a story from your book that really caught your attention, that you just sat back and were like, wow, I can't believe this happened.
Yeah, I've got a number of my favorite cases. I think this one case occurred in 1966 in South Hutchinson, Kansas, at the South Hutch Theater. I interviewed the witness personally. His name is Pat Mitchell. and he had gone there with his friend, and they were watching a James Bond movie. Parked there, got there early. They were in the center, put the little speaker on. It's a big screen, 120 feet high, 52 feet wide, and a large theater. A lot of people were there. And suddenly his friend points out the light that's coming over the screen, off in the distance, in the direct eye line, but a couple of inches above the movie screen, which is what they always do in these cases. It's very strange. And Pat's like, yeah, I see it. What is it? He's like, I don't know. And it's getting bigger pretty quickly. This object is approaching, and suddenly it's right next to the theater itself. It's right next to the screen, in the same exact position as the Paramount drive-in case, right to the right of the screen, below the level of the top of the screen, and just sitting there, and sat there for like 5 minutes. People got out of the car. They were just staring at it. There was no real panic. Everyone was just dumbfounded. And he said it was a classic flying saucer. He estimates 40 feet wide, nearly as large as the screen itself. Totally silent, no portholes, but there were colored lights. Blue, green, red, orange, really pretty. And this thing moves behind the screen. It's now completely out of view for just a second, comes out to the left side and parks there, stays there for 5 minutes, then goes completely around the theater, pulling a full circle, making sure everyone can see it, rounding everyone up, and it starts heading down the main highway about 100 feet high and 20 miles an hour. So what happens? Everyone peels out. The movie's forgotten. They are going to follow this thing. Pat is following it with his friend. 20 people are ahead of him, maybe 20 people behind. A convoy of like 40 or 50 cars heads down the highway and follows this object for 6 miles until it stops again. Parks in the sky. It's a little higher up this time, maybe 500 feet, and stays there for 5 minutes. And everyone's like, it's a UFO. It's, oh, my God. And it finally just takes off straight up. Can't tell me that's not a display. We want a show. It's going to give us a show.
Is it mostly adults seeing this or children as well?
A lot of children witnesses, a lot of adult witnesses, families. It's kind of your whole range there. A lot of these cases do rest in the testimony of perhaps one or two people or a family or a couple. There are only a couple of cases where there was like independent testimony from completely separate corroborating eyewitnesses, if you know what I mean. But, I mean, there was a case in Canada where this theater was visited so often that the theater owners put out an advertisement and said, want to see the UFO? Come to the drive-in.
Okay, so is there a pattern of the movies that are being shown when these craft arrive?
No, I don't think they're watching the movies. There's, I looked into, could it be the movies themselves? If they're studying our movies to learn about us, that's bad news, because definitely they came down when The Exorcist was playing, and King Kong, and all of, our standard movies. People don't usually remember the movie. They're much more, remembering the UFO itself. But there are a few cases where I wonder what's going on here, because there was one case where the objects swooped down and then scooted up to like a star-like object and stayed for the entire length of the movie. And from their viewpoint, I mean, they probably could have seen this, in perfect detail. And there was another case, in Bogalusa, Louisiana, where a lady came upon a UFO hovering behind the drive-in theater owned by her parents. And there were human-looking figures inside, watching the movie. She's pretty sure they were U.S. military. The problem was this was a flying saucer. It was silent. It was hovering there. And took off when she shined a light at it. It's a very strange case.
Okay, a case like that, how low was the craft for her to be able to see individuals in there?
It was about 100 feet high. She was, or less. Let me see. It was 50 feet high. She was 100 feet away. And she had a very clear view of it. She could see that these windows were about 2 feet tall. She could see inside there was a yellow light. There were panels. There were about 6 figures. And she they appeared to be human. They were wearing some sort of suit. She couldn't tell what kind. Does come from a military family. And every now and then, some of these guys would just walk right up to the front of the windows and be watching the movie. So, hard to say what's going on here, but she's pretty sure this was reverse engineering government projects. But I personally wonder, because I don't know. I forget the date of that incident. I can look it up here in a second. But let me see. That was 1960s. So I don't know. It could be ours, but I'm not entirely convinced.
Okay, so when you go back into the older cases, Preston, there was a time between the late 50s and the mid-1970s, early 80s, where there was a lot of weird, strange developmental aircraft, both in black projects and publicly, being flown across the sky. How do we know that a lot of these craft weren't these test vehicles of the U.S. government?
Yeah, I think we know. And here's one case that I think speaks towards that. This occurred at the Terrace Drive-In in Bakersfield, California, August 12, 1952. Big theater, space for 650 cars. One of the witnesses, the main witness here, Lieutenant Jenkins, was watching the movie. A bunch of people were there when this object swoops down and parks over the movie screen for just a second. It's right there, flashes its lights. It's a cigar-shaped object with 5 or 6 lights, perhaps portholes, and it takes off like a bullet. And so he submits a report to the local sheriff's station. Sheriff Leroy Hatfield takes the call and gets another call from another person at the theater, and after the third or fourth call, goes down to the theater itself. And there's 100 people there. The movie's long over. They all want to give testimony to what they saw. It takes about 20 reports and says, "That's enough. I know what you guys saw." Submits a report to, it turned out, the local Air Force, which was Edwards Air Force Base. And this was routed to Project Blue Book. I've got all this in documents. And went to the Air Technical Intelligence Command at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is, really handles the cases that were super sensitive and affected national security. And also went to Anta Air Force Base in Colorado, who track all incoming and outgoing traffic, and to the Director of Intelligence at Washington, D.C. This report was marked action and was sent out the very next day. I don't think this is ours, and they know it's not ours. They're very interested in it.
Okay, and I understand that, but I mean, I guess the way I'm looking at things is people of the 50s, 60s, 70s, which was a much easier life than it is now in a lot of ways, okay, they wouldn't have been able to understand what the SR-71 was, what the testing of the U-2 was, rockets, I mean, all of the supersonic aircraft that were being tested, the B-58 Hustler, I think the F-117 stealth fighter going into the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, that was called a UFO over Area 51 numerous times.
Yeah, but they don't park over these screens for, right next to them. Here's another case, Mentor, Ohio, mid-1960s. A cigar-shaped object hovered right over the theater for a full half an hour till finally the projectionist turned off the movie. People were freaking out. And this is when it put on a real show. This cigar-shaped object turned vertical and proceeded to release 10 discs, which danced around for about 15 minutes or so, and then finally lined up in a column and returned back into the cigar-shaped craft one by one, which went parallel again and moved off. Now that's not government. That's not the stealth bomber. That's that can't be what's going on here.
Okay, Preston Dennett is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We have about 3 minutes here before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. And Preston, when you are looking at these sightings at drive-ins, what similarities do these cases have throughout time, throughout states. You know, there had to be some sort of similarities that you noticed.
Yeah, it's very interesting. The whole heyday really was the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It kind of petered out a little bit in the 80s. It's still going on. I do have modern cases, but there's a very firm pattern, I would say, of what people are seeing is your classic flying saucer, your silver discs, sometimes with portholes, usually not, often with lights, metallic, hovering right next to the screen, right over it, on either side, and just staying there, and sometimes putting on a show, darting around, and sometimes turning off the movie. What I find most interesting is how people react. Sometimes there are cases of people completely panicking, like what happened at, the Portland Twin in Scarborough, Maine. It came over the screen. It was 15 feet over it. People were driving off with the speakers still attached. And this darn thing moves over to the twin, it's a twin theater, to the other screen and clears out that parking lot. Only about 10 or 15 people stayed, including the witness who saw this. So these things know what they're doing. They are trying to be seen.
Why do you think they're trying to be seen as we got about 90 seconds left?
Yeah, I wonder about that. I mean, we know they're trying to be seen. What's the agenda behind it? I feel like in one sense they're announcing their presence, but that just raises more questions like why? Why do they want us to know about them? And this leads me again to think that there's an agenda behind it, that they do want us to know about them because they're pushing towards open official contact, which is what a number of what I would call onboard experiencers have said, that at some point we are, it's going to be a different world where ETs walk among us. And probably to a certain extent already are. I mean, if there are human-looking ETs out there, and we know there are, there's a good chance they're walking among us anyway.
True. Very true. And I want to see them. I'm going to be honest with you. You know that one story, Preston, of all of these aliens that would park at Area 51 and then catch a bus in from Area 51 into the old Sahara and all the old casinos? I want to see that happen. I want Vegas to open up again so I can find me some aliens along Las Vegas Boulevard. That's what I want to see happen, Preston.
Yeah, after looking at all those reports, I wrote an article about that, or it's one of the chapters of my book, Not From Here, the whole series. They walk among us, because there are cases at casinos, at bookstores, gas stations, bus stations, stores, schools. It's outrageous. I don't think people realize, these guys are seen in places you would never expect it.
Absolutely. Preston Dennett is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. PrestonDennett.weebly.com is his website. All of his books can be found online on Amazon and his website as well. Coming up next, we're going to take your questions, and we're going to get into a story that absolutely floors me. Children at school seeing UFOs and aliens. Next in Hour 2 of Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're clear, bud. We're clear.
All right.
Hey, I just want to remind everybody, I'm seeing a lot of new faces in our chat room on YouTube tonight. Thank you so much. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And we have one little rule here. If you want me to get a question over to our guest for tonight, like Preston, okay, put your questions in capital letters. But a minute to go before we go, because our chat room's moving so fast, but a minute to go before we go back on air, I will ask you guys to start typing in your questions. All right? So, Preston, I'm just going to quickly run my dogs outside. I'll be right back.
Every 2 weeks, I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do, what to do.
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right there? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
All right,
Space Travelers, it's me.
We've got 2 minutes, Preston. Hey, UFO Catalunya, welcome to our broadcast. Appreciate that. The gorgeous, lovely, and talented Kira, welcome back. Who else has popped on in here that I missed? Let's see here. The Desert Clam is here. Welcome, Clam. Rodrigo, good to have you back, my friend. Thank you. Thank you for coming on in. Jesse Pink, welcome back. We've got just over a minute here. Hello, Dirty Filth. Good to have you here. So are you all clear from the forest fire smoke now, Preston?
To a certain extent. I would say our air quality is not quite where it should be. And, yeah, some people I know have had some close calls. It's been a scary season.
Yeah, I know. We had it for about 4 or 5 days. It was really bad up here. All the smoke from California, Washington, and Oregon came up. Hold on one second here. Hey, Alex, welcome. Glad to have you here, my West Coast friend. And Renee, always a pleasure to see you here as well. Thank you for coming back. Remember, Super Chat is open. Thank you, Cat Chaser, for kicking things off tonight. Here we go with hour number 2, everyone.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. We really appreciate it. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. All of our archives are free. All you got to do is go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Buncombe. Buncombe is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. On Twitter, you can follow us at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with a good friend of this show's. Preston Dennett is here. His website, PrestonDennett.com. Make that .weebly.com if you want to check him out. He's got like almost 30 books out on the UFO phenomena. This is highly researched, highly good reading, and I suggest you get his books. Preston, welcome back.
Hey, thanks, Dave.
Not a problem. We're going to kick things off with a question from our audience here, a couple of them. First one from Corey down in Washington State. He's a Bigfoot guy, but, you know, his dad, Nate Foot. We call his dad Nate Foot. He's saying, Preston, what do you think about aliens being in the ocean?
I think they are. They are in the ocean, have been for a while. There hasn't been a lot of attention paid to it. I think Ivan T. Sanderson was the first guy to really take a look at it, and he was the only guy for a while. And there's Carl Feint. He ran a website called Water UFO and collected a bunch of accounts. But this is a field of research that hasn't gotten a lot of attention. I started getting a bunch of cases off the coast of Southern California here, from the Santa Catalina Channel, San Pedro Channel, off of LA. It's a very deep area, almost a mile deep in parts. And I started collecting because there were so many. I ended up writing a book about it. So, yeah, I know our oceans are very active with this type of what I would call USO activity, unidentified submersible objects. And it wouldn't surprise me a bit if there are bases in our oceans.
All right, let's move on to Rodrigo's question here. Preston, do you want UFO disclosure, or do you enjoy the search and the mystery?
I would say there's definitely an aspect of, enjoying the whole search, but no, ultimately a mystery bothers me, and being lied to really, is not fun. I would prefer that, yeah, absolutely I want disclosure. Are you kidding? I think it would benefit us all in a lot of different ways, and I think it's inevitable. And I hope to be put out of a job. I would love to be doing, other things. I wanted to be a science fiction writer. That's how I originally kind of thought about aliens, as being, science fiction. So, I should, for this sort of subject to be thrust into, the hands of someone like me. I'm a bookkeeper from Reseda. I'm kind of not the person who should be the one dealing with this. It should be everybody. It should be the greatest minds in the world.
All right, let's get to Brian's question. Getting back to USOs, do you believe they are accessing small isolated bases or entrances to more extensive subterranean infrastructure?
Yeah, there's a definite possibility. In my own research, I had a guy contact me who I trust, because he's given me valid information before, who told me, to look into the fact of tunnels reaching out from, the Santa Catalina area all the way to, get this, Edwards Air Force Base and Area 51 in Nevada. So these are underwater tunnels underground, very large enough for 2 submarines to go by, side by side. And found, evidence of this. So I think there's quite a bit that's going on underneath us that the public in general is not aware of. And we know that there are a lot of military bases that go very far underground. This is not disputed information. So to a certain extent, we know there's a lot going on.
Let's get to Greco in Toronto, who is asking, do you think, Preston, that any of these UFOs are living or being controlled by an intelligent being?
Yeah, I do think that. That's a good question, and this is something a number of witnesses do describe. Sometimes they really struggle with it, but they feel like this ship itself is alive and a living being. One lady I interviewed, she's like, this is the ship I was in was an artificial intelligence. It's a living being. She connects psychically with it. And I would say that would be an accurate statement, but perhaps not true in all cases. Because some people do just, there's many different descriptions of these types of craft.
All right, Minister Elaine is asking, Preston, do you think, or why do you think, they, being the aliens, do not interact with us more? Why are they holding back?
That's kind of the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I can only speculate. I do feel like there's an element to humanity that is very violent and hard to control, and that this, is one of the things. Our own prejudices. They've said this as much. Our own violent tendencies to kill one another over, our perceived differences is definitely one of the barriers, I think, towards open official contact. The fact that we're not telling each other the truth, and our society is corrupt, and we can't take care of our old people, and we're polluting our environment. These are all messages that people get when they're taken on board UFOs. And for that matter, it's messages people get when they have near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences. Or it's the same message the Native American elders have been giving for years and years. I think, there's a message we need to start listening to this, yeah.
All right, let's move on here, and let's go to Bushy's question. And he is asking what your thoughts are about UFO activity around Catalina Island off the coast of California. It's very close to Bushy and wants to know what's going on. Now, I will preface this that the Tic Tac incident happened right near Catalina Island on a military adventure and training exercise. So there is history of it out there in that area, Preston.
Yeah, and I wish I had known about that Tic Tac incident when I was doing my own research in this area. I've cataloged some 150 cases of objects over the Santa Catalina Channel, at least 70, 75 objects coming in and out of the water, under the water, moving very quickly. Sometimes they're targeting boats, going right under them. And Catalina Island is probably the primary place to see all this stuff. A lot of reports on Catalina Island itself, but Palos Verdes Peninsula, all up and down the Pacific Coast Highway. You can't go down a mile down the highway where I can't, pinpoint an encounter. So this is an area that's extremely active, and if you want to see a UFO or USO, certainly one of the primary areas, yeah.
One of the big things about that whole area is the fact that there's a lot of sea activity there, not only with shipping, not only with military exercises, but there's a lot of fishing around there. There's a lot of whale activity, great white shark activity. I'll tell you, I'll never go out there. Never. As long as there's great whites in the area, which is pretty much everywhere there's salt water, I'm not going. It's just that simple. Just that simple. All right, Jenny is asking, Have you heard of any UFO bases under Mount Hayes in Alaska?
Not specifically, no. I can't. I did get a sort of a secondhand report that there are underground military bases in Alaska where they reverse engineer UFOs and are flying them around, and that some of the UFOs seen in that area are our own. But can't point to that I can't speak to that specific area. But it wouldn't surprise me because there's a lot of stuff going on, and our military is involved in this neck deep. I think there are probably multiple alien bases across our planet.
All right, moving on. Minister Elaine again. Why would we kill each other by just finding out aliens are real? Let's debate this for a little bit because this could get good.
Yeah, there's that famous War of the Worlds radio show with Orson Welles. People did panic, people died, and that's often been pointed to how people would react. I don't think that's how people would react. The fact is we're already dealing with this. We've got large-scale UFO sightings, and sometimes they're so large-scale they do break through the mainstream media, whether it's the Stevensville, Texas, or the Chicago O'Hare Airport case, or the Mexico City sightings, Hudson Valley Wave, Gulf Breeze. There is an element of that already going on. And at some point, one of these things is just going to park over New York City, LA. I'm not sure where it's going to be, some little town in Kansas. And it's going to stay there long enough where we can say, okay, this is not our own. And we all know now. But I don't know. I'm not sure how this is all going to roll out.
Well, I think we also have to take a look at the fact that there's going to be people rioting in the streets, considering that if any government of the world actually knows about this, which we speculate that they do, we know that they do, we know they're investigating, okay, but we haven't heard their information or their reports or how much or how often it's happened. I think there will be rioting. We have to look at the religious aspect as well, where many religions out there, and this isn't a shot at religion, people, okay? So before I start getting hate mail over this, we do have to realize that, biblically speaking, Preston, there are a lot of people out there, religious people out there, who believe that anything from the sky is going to be demonic in nature. And therefore, anything demons usually leads up to Armageddon, and that's going to just, let's be honest, cause a lot of panic.
Yeah. My latest book, On Board, well, not my latest, recent book, On Board UFO Encounters, there was one guy who was pretty darn convinced these guys are demonic. But there was another guy who's like, no, my guys were angelic. He's convinced they were, angelic in the literal sense. Most are convinced it's ETs. One guy's like, no, I think they're wearing masks. I don't know what this is. It's some weird intelligence, a jinn type of thing. So there is an element of mystery to this. I think, in a sense, there is no mystery. We know there are extraterrestrials. I think we have enough evidence to say this is a conclusive thing. I mean, what do we need? We've got the craft. We've got the bodies. We've removed implants. We've got landing trace cases. We've got medical evidence. It's to the point now where things can't remain how they are.
Well, you know what I find funny is, to throw some humor into this. I mean, we saw when COVID-19 broke out, we saw everybody racing to the supermarkets and to Costco and Walmart and places like that to absolutely hoard as much toilet paper as they possibly could. What is going to happen? What is the hoarding object of UFOs? That's what I want to know about.
Well, that would be, yeah. We'll find out, won't we? Binoculars.
I don't know. I'm going with Metamucil. I'm sticking with Metamucil. My money is on Metamucil.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. There has been a real strong uptick in UFO sightings over the last few months. Not sure if that's because more people are outside or what's going on, but it's definitely something we've seen. More reports than normal.
It is weird. It is strange. And that's why we love having Preston Dennett here on Spaced Out Radio. Human Carl says it's going to be aluminum foil. Going to be aluminum foil. That's it. Appreciate that, Human Carl. All right. We got time for a couple more questions here before we are going to move on in topics. Kimberly is asking, does it seem based on all the reports that the extraterrestrials only target certain humans, and that is why many of us have not experienced contact yet?
There's definitely another great question, because we don't know why some people have experiences and others don't, other than that they do track families, that's for sure. If your grandmother has seen UFOs and your parents, well, get ready. Get a camera, because you're going to see one too. They do seem to track families, particularly in cases of people are having repeated encounters and being taken on board. But there's a completely random element. You could move into an area that's a UFO hotspot, upstate New York, or the Topanga Canyon area, or Withville, Virginia, a little town that was just had besieged by UFOs. There's definitely a weird random aspect to this. So it's very hard to pinpoint who sees UFOs. It's very evenly divided. I looked at this. My files are evenly divided between men and women, young and old people. It's mostly people in the suburbs, with a smaller portion in the dense cities and very rural areas.
Greco is asking, have you considered that these aren't aliens at all, but some sort of pre-Clovis era species?
Yeah, there are a lot of theories as to what we're dealing with here. And we've already talked quite a bit about this. They could be time travelers. They could be interdimensional beings. But I always like to point out, well, the fact that they do have the ability to travel in time doesn't preclude them from being extraterrestrial as we would think of them. And as far as interdimensionality, well, we ourselves are interdimensional. We perhaps don't have the abilities that they can do with altering their appearance or disappearing and turning at right angles, but everything, every entity has an interdimensional aspect to them. We have a soul, a dream body, an astral body. That's an impossible question to answer, because they're not telling us where they're from, and we don't understand what an interdimensional being would even be. What we are seeing is humanoid figures, and they appear to be physical in every sense of the word. And these craft, as well, are leaving landing traces, and people are, who are being taken on board are not where they're supposed to be. They're missing. This is a physical experience. It's not, hallucinatory.
Right. All right. Chris is asking, do we need to have a hive mind to be accepted into the Cosmic Club?
Yeah, perhaps. I think on some level, we all do telepathically. We're all connected. I mean, we are one species. And I think subconsciously there's sort of a one mind to that. And this is how the Greys live naturally. They are a very telepathic race, and most ETs are like this. It's all about telepathy. There's no such thing as lying. Everyone can read each other's mind. There's no, I don't want to say no, but in terms of conflict, it's not like it is here, who don't communicate and don't read each other's minds effectively, at least. I think there's something to that. We're going to have to grow up, our race, and wake up to our own natural human talents. And this kind of speaks to what happens to people who are taken on board. They do come back with this feeling like they can do telepathy, have the ability to do psychic reading, hands-on healing, out-of-body travel, all this kind of stuff. So I think they're trying to wake us up to our own potential and get us to the point where we can communicate and stop killing each other.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Hey, I'm a dreamer.
But you know what? I don't think you're that far off. A lot of people that we have had on this show over the years have pretty much extracted that same notion of extraterrestrials, that they're kind of pissed off with how violent of a species we are. And, if you hear it once or twice, that's something. But you hear it numerous times like we have here, you got to think there might be a little bit to that. Let's move on here. Kira is asking, Preston, why do you think there are women who are getting impregnated by extraterrestrials?
Yeah, I got one of those cases. One of the first cases I ever had was your hybrid baby case, and it was pretty shocking to me because Bud Hopkins' books had just, come out, and I'm like, wow, this is matching up with exactly what he's saying. And I continue to get cases like this, and it's clear that this is happening to both men and women, and these Greys in particular are creating hybrid babies, and the apparent purpose, and this I've heard from many, I'm going to say several different abductees personally, but certainly have read this all over the place. The Greys have reached a point where they're sterile and are not able to reproduce. They reproduce through cloning. And they've got a lot of genetic damage. They once looked just like us, but had changed their genetics to weed out emotions, which they thought were destructive, and to for space travel. And now they're trying to replenish their race, or revitalize it rather, using our genetics, because we and they are essentially the same species. We've got the same genetics.
I love Larry's question here, as we got about a minute 45 left before we go to break at the bottom of the hour. Are these extraterrestrials watchers from the Bible?
There's been some speculation towards that, and it wouldn't surprise me a bit. That's what Betty Andreasen called them. She's a well-known abductee from Massachusetts and is religious and has still, reconciled this with her beliefs and feels there's an angelic aspect to it. And certainly there's a lot of ancient writings out there that talk about people from above. Most cultures across our planet have legends, or whatever you want to call that, an oral tradition, that their ancestors came from above. We did not evolve from here like it's taught in schools. No. The fact that there are human ETs raises serious questions anyway. So yeah, I think there's definitely something to that. There's enough different sources to say that probably they've been around for a very long time and have intervened in our race for millennia.
It's kind of interference there. It's kind of interference, man.
It's they're on top of things, let me tell you. I mean, we've got cases of people who've been brought together as, partners, lovers, husband and wife, set up, essentially, see each other on a UFO, and then meet later, and just weird stuff where they're very manipulative.
Yes, I know people like that as well. It's incredible how they connect that way, and how that building of a relationship is almost understudy by the extraterrestrials. Preston, I'm going to get you to hold on right now because we are going to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Preston Dennett is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Show is flying on by. This is a lot of information that Preston is delivering tonight. His website, PrestonDennett.weebly.com. Highly suggest you check it out. All of his books are on Amazon as well as Google. When we come back, what about schoolyard UFO encounters? I need to know about this. It's my little guys in school. All right, we're clear. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I get all excited.
Me too, man. Me too.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens with all this. It's been a long haul. It's been, 30 years. Almost, we're working on 40. Things are finally changing a little bit.
It's amazing. Amazing. God, I couldn't imagine being in the field that long. I mean, I'm only in 5 years, 5.5 years, almost 6 years. November will be 6 years
Yeah, there's only a few long timers. There's some pioneers who are still out there. Tim Beckley,
Yeah.
he's still kicking, and there's people who've been in this field for a long time. Yvonne Smith, Barbara Lamb.
Yes.
But a lot of people just come in and they're gone. They're like, what happened to this person or that person? And a lot of researchers don't write. So there's some great researchers out there, but I wish Barbara Lamb would start pumping out some books, and Yvonne Smith, because I know they've got mountains of data.
Oh, for sure. For people listening in, Barbara Lamb has probably some of the best collections of regression therapy from ET contactees. I would love to see that, man. I would love to just delve into that.
Yeah, I often want, Bud Hopkins too. He had a lot of stuff as well. He's like, I'm not going to publish anything else until it's radically different or changes my theories. I'm like, well, gosh, you've got a lot of reports that would be very interesting, I think. But I get it. To a certain extent, a lot of researchers are out there for them. I don't want to say for themselves, but certainly for me, it's a personal quest. I needed to find out if this was real. You know what I mean? And I know with Bud Hopkins, he had seen a UFO sighting, and that's what kind of drew him in. Brad Steiger was visited by an ET as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely an element to that. I know Barbara Lamb has had contact. I think most researchers have, whether they admit it or not.
Oh, I know there's a bunch out there that do not want to admit it because they want to be scientific. They want to be better than everybody.
Yeah, remember Margaret Mead, the anthropologist? She's like, no, let's get in there and live with them.
Exactly, right?
When I heard UFOs were real, I was actually out there in the fields, literally, trying to see one, where people, where there was a wave of sightings, I would be camping out.
Right? Absolutely.
I'm ready. I wanted to go, see one for myself. What better way to study it?
Preston, how many people have you talked to who've been or gone through a multitude, let's call it a plethora of contact, and then all of a sudden it just stops?
Yeah. Gosh, let me think about that for a second.
There's a book for you, my friend. There is a book for you.
There is a weird pattern because it can stop for years and then suddenly kick back up again. That's what happened to one guy in England I was talking to.
Happened to me.
And
that's the subject that pisses me off the most. It's happened to me. Like, dude, I used to call over friends to my house to come over for, let's have a beer on the patio and watch the UFOs fly over. And my friends would never believe me until they got to my house. And all of a sudden, about 2 years later, it stopped. A year and a half later, it just stopped. I couldn't see a UFO if my life depended on me right now.
I've had a number of sightings over the years for sure. Yeah, I wonder, I kind of feel like it's on their turf.
I know.
You know what I mean? If they want to show themselves, they will. And if you're seeing one, it's because they want you to see it.
Right. All right, we got 30 seconds left. Want to remind everybody that a good way to support what we do here on Spaced Out Radio is give us a thumbs up. There's 157 people watching right now live. We'd love it if you gave us a thumbs up. Great way to support what we do is to hit that subscribe button as well as ring that bell. Join us in the Super Chat if you feel we deserve that. Do a little shopping on our website at the SOR Vault. Pick yourself up some great swag from Spaced Out Radio. Here we go with the next half hour of tonight's show. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we are talking with legendary UFO writer Preston Dennett. He has nearly 30 books that you can find on Amazon, on Google. They are everywhere. It's always great to support great writers and researchers like Preston. His website, prestondennett.weebly.com. Preston, welcome back.
Hey, thank you.
You have a book out that I'm going to admit I haven't read it yet. There are very few books out there that I actually want to read on this topic, and this is one of them. And that is a book that you wrote in 2019 called Schoolyard UFO Encounters. Man, I wouldn't know how to react if all of a sudden my little guy comes running home and said, "Dad, there was a spaceship in our playground this past school day." I don't know how I would do it, man. Do not know. What made you write this book? Because anything that involves children, man, we just get a little bit more sensitive to it.
Yeah, I mean, some of these accounts made me cry. Just hearing these kids and hearing their testimony was very touching. And kind of stumbled into it. I was been looking at cases of things that attract UFOs, and had found some really weird things, like UFOs are hovering over prisons or graveyards, rocket launches. And so I'm kind of keeping an eye out for these sort of things, and had run across a few schoolyard encounters. And remembered there was a couple of really famous ones. There was a very well-known one in Africa, Zimbabwe, Ariel Elementary School, 1994. UFO landed right next to the school. I knew there was another very famous one in Australia, and kind of stumbled into this one in Crestview, Florida, or Crestview Elementary School in Opelika, Florida, and it got that same kind of chill I always get, like, whoa, is this a pattern? What's going on here? These are weird cases, and started to think of these other cases that I already knew of, and said, okay, let's survey the literature. And doing research now is a lot easier than it used to be. So accessing, NUFORC and MUFON and National NICAP, APRO, some of these older UFO databases, and all these books and newspaper articles, got 100 accounts of UFOs not only hovering next to schools at very low level for long periods of time, but landing in about 30% of the cases. So this was definitely a thing, and it was definitely, not a coincidence. These objects were directly targeting schools.
What happened at that elementary school in Florida?
This was, 1967, exactly 1 year after the Westall High School incident in Australia, which was a huge case and extremely similar. This is Crestview Elementary School on Opelika, Florida, May 1967, I believe it was. They saw a group of about 6 kids and a teacher saw this UFO hovering over the school. Didn't think much of it until Friday, the next day, when suddenly these objects were back, and not only hovering over the school, they landed. They landed right next to the school in sort of this grove of trees. And all the students saw, this is an elementary school, very young kids. And at some point, the military showed up and pulled all the kids inside. They were told not to talk about it. People were sent home. Those who were on bikes or had walked to school were allowed to just leave, and said that the UFO was still there. But at some point, obviously, these objects left, and is one of many cases where the government apparently does show up, immediately following or even during these incidents.
Okay, so with those cases in the U.S. regarding sightings at schools, potentially landings as well. Does the military and the police come in and start interviewing the children? Did it go like Roswell, where they're telling people you didn't see what you thought you saw?
In some cases, there's more of an active cover-up than others. It's sort of just let them die on the vine, so to speak. The Crestview Elementary School case, there were 200 students who saw this, multiple teachers. It's a very well-documented incident that really got very limited press coverage, and the military said it was helicopters. They said that they had seen helicopters under unusual conditions, which is, disingenuous, false, and misleading, and the whole list. But they're covering it up to that extent, and we do see this in other cases.
Is this happening at just elementary schools and high schools? Do we have cases where it's happening at colleges or universities as well?
Yep, looked into that. Of the 100 cases, get this, 50% are at elementary schools. That was one of the shocking, findings for me, because that sort of pointed towards these guys are targeting our youngest children. In a lot of these cases, these kids have no idea what a UFO is. They've never heard that term. But definitely colleges as well. In fact, all high school, junior high, one of the college incidents was the one that really broke this wide open, the Hillsdale, Michigan incident at Hillsdale College, where some 87 students and faculty and police officers saw this object hovering over the school for 2 hours and actually landed in front of the school about a quarter mile away, briefly, and fits again this pattern of where they're, just like the drive-in movie theaters, showing themselves off. It's been from 1950 onwards, once or twice a year, and definitely they're targeting schools.
What do you think the purpose of targeting schools is?
It's a publicity campaign. That's what I think they're doing here. It's a very sort of gentle way to influence society and let kids know that they're real, because these kids go running home and they're like, I saw a UFO. And whether their parents believe them or not, it doesn't often make national news. A number of these cases do make certainly local newspaper coverage and are very dramatic. I think, again, they're just trying to put on a show. Here's a good case that speaks towards that. Jerome Elementary School in Marysville, Ohio, October 22nd, 1954. This object appears over the playground. There's like 60 kids out there, and it's hovering, it's getting lower, it's very bright, and so they call the principal out. He sees it. He's never seen anything like it before, he says. He's calling out another teacher when this thing darts away and leaves behind. Suddenly the sky is filled with this spiderweb substance, like cotton candy, and just falls all over the playground, covering the school in a perimeter for over a mile around. And it's what we now know as angel hair. And it was one of the highest quantities that's ever been deposited in the United States. They were able to gather stuff up, preserve it, send it off to the local newspaper office, who sent it off to Lockbourne Air Force Base, who never responded to whatever this was. But they gathered it up, it would melt, it was gelatinous, it would sublime very quickly, disintegrate. And in my mind, it was a clear display, sort of a look at me type of thing.
Okay, so as you are looking through these sightings with children, there has to be an emotional value placed on that as well, because children would not really know, I would assume, how to react to these type of extraordinary events. In certain cases, I believe the one in Africa as well, extraterrestrials did leave the craft and were almost going towards the children, I believe. Has that happened in a lot of these cases?
There are humanoids in about 20% of the cases. The Ariel Elementary School case in Zimbabwe is the one you're talking about. And that was when at least, there were 200 people, 400 people on the playground. At least 60 people saw this craft land. And a smaller group did see the ETs, or figures at least, come out, 3 of them. And they approached right close to some students and did communicate with them. And each of them got a very similar message. It's very interesting. The ETs told one girl that we've become far too technological. There's a good way to use technology and a bad way. And we could do much better. And another was told we got to stop cutting down the forests. And these were the kinds of messages they were getting. But overall, that's pretty rare. Some see humanoids, but getting actual messages is only a few cases like that.
Do a lot of these children continue on? And when I say children, I'm saying anybody who's in school, because now that I'm 47, up until you're graduated from university, you're pretty much a child, in my eyes. And I mean that in a positive way, nothing negative, because everybody wants to, what are you doing? Anyways, moving forward, are they having more ET contact after this initial contact at school?
In most cases, no, but yes, that does happen. That happened in the Rua, Zimbabwe case. Some students ended up having a lifetime of contact. Here's a good case from Leonard Stringfield, great researcher. He had, come home to find that there was a message on his machine from a boy in Georgia who had reported a UFO. He wasn't there to take the call. But then he got a call from the boy's father saying that his son was missing. And what happened is this boy had come home and told his parents that a UFO had followed him home from school. And he was afraid he was going to get abducted. His parents didn't believe him. And he ended up withdrawing like $500 from the bank and running away. And so there's a missing persons case involved. And long story short, they found him at the Atlanta airport. They brought him home and got the whole story. It turned out a year earlier, this was in 1975, in 1974, he had a UFO hovering over his high school playground, and he felt like it was after him. And that evening, he had ETs, or figures, come into his bedroom saying, don't be afraid, but you need to come with us. And completely freaked him out. He gave kind of a description of the eyes, the big eyes and the bald head, that sort of thing. So yeah, there is an element to that, for sure, but I'm not sure how common it is. What we mostly see is kids are really impressed. It's something they think about perhaps every day of their lives, or a lot. Some become really impressed to the point that they're investigators themselves, or get very into quantum physics. There was a case in Scotland where this happened. The witness is Malcolm Robinson. He's now the leading, well, not perhaps the leading, but certainly one of the leading UFO researchers in Scotland. So there is an influence factor for sure.
All right. Preston Dennett is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio, and we always appreciate Preston coming on. One final question about these elementary school kids. And the reason why I focus on that is my son is in grade 2, and I could just imagine what that would be like, because there's a big open field outside of the schoolyard that, damn it, it would be like right in my backyard if things, anything landed there. And trust me, I have been trying to get something to land back in that green belt, Preston. I have been trying with no luck so far that I know of. All right? But in regards to the contact these children are having, and this leads to a question Shar had asked a long time ago in the chat room, and I'll bring it up now. Were Men in Black ever involved with these child cases?
No. Well, let me think. There was one case. That's true. Only one that I can think of. So it doesn't seem to be a very big factor in these. No, these are mostly just one-off. They target a school, and then they move on to another one. And mostly elementary schools. And yeah, those are the ones that really kind of touch me the most, where kids see these things hovering right over schools. There was one in Encinitas, California, where they looked through this porthole and they could see humanoid figures. And a bunch of kids saw this, and a teacher as well, who completely denied it and asked the kids not to talk about it. But the kids came home from school and was describing this to her father. She's 7 years old. And he went to the school and found other students who saw this and talked to the teachers. He tried to get attention. He called the police. He finally found Newfork, National UFO Reporting Center.
Peter Davenport, yeah.
Right. But otherwise, no one showed any interest.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. All right, as we have we got about 7 minutes here before we got to go to break at the top of the hour. Preston Dennett is our guest tonight. Let's move on here because you have so many intriguing books and stories that are out there. I want to try and hit a few of these if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah.
All right. Do you believe there is a connection between a lot of these creatures? So, for instance, one of the things that people like David Weatherly and Timothy Renner seem to really focus on is that there is an interconnection between cryptids, ghosts, UFOs, aliens. So in the reports that you have taken and written about, have you seen that connection happening?
I have. It's not super common. And I've been in this field for a while and did notice that a number of experiencers were also reporting near-death experiences or experiences with ghosts and paranormal stuff. I started leaving my questions more open-ended because I feared that there was a lot of unexplained stuff going on. And is this linked to UFOs? In some cases, I think, yeah. Bigfoot sometimes comes up directly in UFO cases. And one lady I knew who had contact with gray ETs for a while, and it kind of slowed down, started having Bigfoot encounters. I'm not sure that's a coincidence, because I talked to another guy who literally had a UFO land in his backyard. This is up in Canyon Country, California, Southern California. And next day had a Bigfoot encounter. And that was the case that kind of dragged me into the Bigfoot field, kicking and screaming, because I knew it was a can of worms, and it was. I think there is a connection. I'm not sure what it is. I do feel like, in that case, the Bigfoot UFO case, he had a poltergeist haunting break out afterwards. I was investigating a ghost case. They were having terrible problems with very bad ghosts, so we're trying to possess them. And they move out and have this massive UFO sighting over their new apartment. They weren't sure that was a coincidence either. It scared the daylights out of them. They thought the ghost was back. So I'm not sure what the connection is. I really don't quite understand it, but I feel like experiencers are woken up to a certain extent or are vibrating on a higher frequency, that they're drawing this stuff in perhaps, or are more aware of it, or ETs are drawn to it as well. There's something going on for sure.
All right. Let's get into this. You wrote a book in 2017 about inside UFOs, true accounts of contact. This absolutely enthralls me, okay? And I think it would for any ET contactee at all, in trying to figure out the information, whether or not you've been on craft or whether it's a dream state. How were you able to tell with the stories in this book whether or not they were dreams of people or whether they were true encounters?
Well, in all of the cases in that particular book, these people were awake. These are not something that they recalled as dreams or under hypnosis. These incidents occurred in normal waking consciousness. So that wasn't really even a question in these particular cases. And for that matter, some of them are multiple witness cases. So when you have, people there next to you and they're remembering what happened, clearly not a dream.
Okay, so take us through a couple of the encounters that you wrote about there. Let's start off. Let me take a look here. Let's start off with these giant grasshopper aliens. I got to know about these, man.
Yeah, Jeannie. She was a really neat lady. I met her at a UFO meeting that I was speaking at. And she had always been interested in UFOs, but never thought she was having contact. Was kind of ignoring the fact that she was having these sort of visitations in her bedroom at night by these beings. And she couldn't wake up, but she could kind of sense their presence, and they were talking to her telepathically, leaving her kind of weird cryptic messages like the time has come or we are coming or things like this. And didn't connect it to UFOs, even though she had a growing interest in the subject, until one evening she woke up and she was just choking, and this weird taste of garlic was in her mouth. She rushed to the bathroom, and there was nothing there except this horrible taste in her mouth. And she ended up meeting with Daryl Sims, and she was one of 2 cases in the book who did seek hypnosis and went under hypnosis and recalled seeing this giant grasshopper-like thing in the bathroom of her apartment, and it was shoving this sort of instrument down her throat.
Oh, no.
And scared this was not a pleasant thing for her. It was very traumatizing. And she can't even look at the pictures of these things that you see in the media. It just gets her ill.
No kidding.
So she had a rough time with it in the beginning, but overall it takes a good view of the phenomena, oddly enough. I mean, she doesn't think they're evil.
What about people who claim, as we got about a minute and a half to go here, about flying the craft, where they sit in the chair, and it reminds me of the mid-1980s movie Flight of the Navigator, where it's all about consciousness.
Yeah, it's startlingly accurate. And I think some of the witnesses who I interviewed for my book, Onboard Experiences, if they were listening, they'd be jumping up in their seat right now, because that's absolutely true. And I see this quite a bit, surprisingly. Like in that book, Onboard Encounters, 15 cases, I think it's 5 of them had this experience. And one of the ladies, Dolly, she describes exactly that. She's like, yeah, this thing is, you have to be empathetic to fly the craft. They've taught her how to do it. You connect to it, and it's an AI, and it's very advanced, and people don't understand because they're looking for engines and stuff like that, but that's not how it operates. It operates on the magnetic fields of repulsion, and in ways that we don't quite understand. That she was trying to explain it to me as it was explained to her. She's all into the quantum physics and stuff like that. She's pretty darn smart. So yeah, that's absolutely a thing. And they'll put you in the chair. They'll show you the levers. They let this one kid fly it around. In one case, he was just, 12 years old. They're like, this is how you do it.
I met a 12-year-old in my town who has allegedly flown a craft. And she said it was all in her mind. Not the story, but that's how she just knew how to fly it, is because of what she thought in her mind. And I think we got to explore that a little bit more. Preston Dennett is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We got him for another 30 minutes before we're going to join Vancouver and The Shift. Then the thought of the day, a jam-packed hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio coming up next. All right, my friend, I'm just going to run my dogs outside. I'll be right back, okay?
You got it.
I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Hi there, this is the paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall. I'd like to invite you to listen in each Sunday night where we're going to open up your eyes to everything strange and paranormal. I will be hosting some great guests with topics that affect us all, such as UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. Let's learn together on Spaced Out Radio Sunday with myself, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer at spacedoutradio.com.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get bumblefucked?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at cajons.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. And follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best-rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right there? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
We all know.
All right,
on
my
Spaced
friend,
Out
I
Radio,
am back.
We love a good...
I'm here.
All right, good. So when we get to the next break, I'll say goodnight to you on the air, but just hold off until I get to say goodnight to you properly when we come back. Or when we go to break, pardon me.
You got it.
Been a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure is mine.
Well, you know, the minute you get a book out, we'll bring you on.
Yeah, I love it. I appreciate it. Yeah.
All right, YouTubers, I have missed a bunch of questions by you guys tonight. So do me a favor and make sure that you repost your questions, and I'll get them to Preston when we come back from the air in about 45 seconds. Thank you once again to Cat Chaser for opening up the Super Chat tonight. It's a great way to support what we do on a nightly basis here. Also, a great way to support us is to do a little shopping at the SOR Vault and on our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and the bell. That way you know when we're going to be coming on live. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Don't forget to put your questions in capital letters so that way old Davey can read them off. It's much easier for me to do that. The way our chat room moves real fast, I'll need to have a little bit of help with that. 10 seconds.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
We got the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio kicking off tonight. I'm your host, Dave Scott, hanging out with all of you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. Remember, all of our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Bunkum. Bunkum is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduce Preston Dennett. His website, prestondennett.weebly.com. You can find any of his books on Amazon, Google. They're all over the place. He's got like almost 30 of them now. And we're going to take some of your questions. If you're in the chat room, put them in capital letters. That way I can read them. And Preston, welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah.
Kimberly is asking, what's your thoughts on starseeds?
Starseeds? Yeah, well, I think it depends on how you define that. I feel like a lot of people feel like they don't come from here and perhaps are incarnated into a human body and are not necessarily, coming from the human species. And I wonder about that. Or starseeds like, light workers. I think the definition is hard to pin down a little bit as to what people mean when they say starseed. But I do wonder about, a lot of people coming in who do feel like they've had past lives as ETs. So I think that might be what the question is regarding. And do have a lot of cases. Yeah, you can march out a number of them where people experiencers in particular, feel that this is absolutely true. I know John Mack had cases like that. That was true in the Topanga Canyon case, I think. And I've got many cases like that myself, for sure.
All right, Block Chick is asking, do you think aliens landed near the Salton Sea?
Well, I know the area. I think I could probably find some cases in that area. But I don't know of any specifically offhand. You can go to pretty much anywhere on this planet and find a UFO history in that area if you dig hard enough. So I'm sure that there are cases in that area.
All right, moving on here. I love this question from Gnome Squatch. I'm just going to add to it a little bit here. If extraterrestrials are as advanced as we believe they are, how come they haven't jumped on our internet to communicate or influence us?
Who's to say they haven't? What I find very interesting about our society is the idea of UFOs and ETs. It's saturated in our culture. It's in video games. It's the lead trope in science fiction. It's A number of the top grossing movies are about ETs. So there does seem to be an element of influence there. It's very much like Star Trek. A lot of the elements in Star Trek we see in true life UFO accounts. So I feel like there's a merging of a bleed through there to some extent, and I wonder about it.
All right. Big question from FAP in the chat room here, and we ask every guest these two questions. Normally we do it during the commercial breaks, but I'll throw them out there right now. Preston, I don't know how to ask you this.
Uh-oh.
What's your opinion of eating breakfast foods for dinner?
It's all right every now and then. I've done it before, and yeah, it's a nice, quick way to get a meal done. Sure, why not?
Oh, Preston. Oh. I thought we were friends, man. I thought we were friends. Breakfast foods are for breakfast, man. And the other question is, let's go back to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Devil's Tower. Are you on Team Stump or are you on Team Rock?
Team Stump or Team Rock? Well, I'm not even sure what that means.
Is it a tree stump or is it a giant rocky buildup?
I'm gonna go with Team Rock, but I hope it's a tree. I hope it's a stump.
Oh, we're totally.
No.
Team Stump all the way, man. Team Stump all the way.
All right.
All right, moving on here. Moving on. Eberada, who's new to our chat room, thank you so much for joining us. Preston, do you think Earth is a penal colony as it is sometimes suggested?
I have heard that, and I don't think we have enough evidence to support that, but it's come up in a few cases. And there certainly does seem to be some weird quarantine factor, probably because of our violent ways, is what I think the real reason is. And perhaps we're like not quite as developed as we could be, and we are the no good doers, the defiant ones. But yeah, I wish I could answer that question with some real knowledge, but can only speculate on that one.
Truth. Very true. All right, let's move on to another question here. This one from Nick, who is asking, Preston, do you think that UAPs are visiting elementary schools as a preparation for close encounters with the next generation?
Yes, I sure do. And that's exactly what they're doing. I think it's a campaign to convince people that UFOs are real, and we see among the younger generations for sure, pretty much universal belief in life out there and UFOs for that matter. So it's been pretty effective, and get them while they're young, and it works.
Do you think it's because, especially in the Western civilization, a lot of younger generations are moving away from the church, trying to find their own spirituality and their own spiritual path?
Yeah, there has been a strong decline in religion for a long time, because science kind of came and marched all over it. But science doesn't have the answers either, so people are left in a sort of quandary of what the heck is going on. How do we explain this? And the fact is, we've just got to look at this very objectively. And we live in a world that's a lot different than we've been taught. That there is, in fact, ETs out there. Life after death, there's a lot of supernatural stuff we would consider supernatural that is not accepted, that is going on, that isn't really paranormal at all. It's just misunderstood. It's not accepted. It's not being studied. There's nothing paranormal about UFOs or ghosts. This is something that just happens, and we have to learn how to deal with it.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I look at my kids, okay? I have 3 kids. And I look at them, and they are much smarter than I could ever be at that age, or what I remember being at that age. they are much more mature. They are much more open-minded. They are much more gravitated towards their own abilities, whether it's intuition, whether it's their own spirituality. They seem to be more resilient towards the way things are happening. Yes, they're more emotional. Yes, they are more spastic in a way, and I mean that in a complimentary way, that they're quick to react. They're quick to voice a lot of speaking before thinking. Okay, and I'm saying that as I see that in a lot of kids these days under the age of 22. Okay, my children are spread out. They're 20, 21, 17, and 7.
Wow.
And so I look at them in this, and I think, I do believe that younger generation, that 25 and under crowd, maybe even 30 and under, could handle some sort of extraterrestrial landing involvement. I'm not sure if the 30 and over crowd could. I think there would be a lot of panic. But that's just what I'm thinking in regards to that. Your opinion of that younger generation. Are they, I'm sure you have cousins or nieces, nephews out there who are of a younger age, and you've discussed this topic with them. What's their reaction to it?
Yeah, they're much more open to it. They're much more open to a lot of different things. I think they're much more tolerant of people, used to people who are different skin color or different lifestyles and this sort of things, because we see so much of it. So it's something people have gotten used to. They've grown up with the fact that UFOs have always been there. There's always been stories of abductions. Roswell's always been there. For a lot of people, this is still a new subject. Let's face it, it really kind of came barreling in 1947, gung-ho, and had never had that kind of impact in modern society before, really ever, in modern history at least. So it was a brand new event, which, 1947, that's 1950, that's not that long ago. Really, so this whole new generation, this is why I think we're going to see some big changes as the new generations kind of roll through all this.
All right, Burgos is asking, and welcome to our chat room for the first time. Any thoughts about how the Mandela effect may play into this?
That's the Mandela effect. I know what that is, and I wonder about it. People, have differing versions of history, remembering Mandela died or did he not. Are there different timelines? I have not done enough research into this to really speak to it, and I'm sometimes, I don't know what to think of it. I know there are people who are dead serious about this. What I can tell you is ETs do have the ability to certainly stop time, or it appears that they can pull people out of time, a time stream, because everything will stop. They can telescope time, expand it, and put you back like in an incident right after it occurred. They show people the past. I know cases where there are little kids and they're shown, like, this is your house in the future. This is the person you're going to meet. So they show people the future. So there's definitely a lot of aspects to time about this, I can say that.
Very interesting. All right, let's move on here as we wait for more questions from our audience here on Spaced Out Radio. Preston, your own experiences that you had, are they continuing today, whether it's paranormal, whether it's UFO sightings?
Yeah, every now and then. September, that's this month, September 4th, 8:40 p.m. I was out there in the backyard looking up at the sky, shaking my fist, like, where are you guys? Which I do every now and then, because I wonder, and I have a backyard and I can look out at the stars, and darned if this light didn't show up, honest to God, and this wasn't a satellite, this was a bright light kind of towards the zenith there. Moved about 2 degrees across the sky, stayed visible for maybe, I'm going to say 3 full seconds. But I can tell you it wasn't a satellite or a plane or a helicopter or I don't know what it was. But it was definitely weird. And I thought, hey, that was a little UFO sighting. I want to see the craft. That would be nice. But
do you think yourself you've ever been on craft?
I don't have any proof of that. Notice my voice hesitating. Because, there was this one time, and I keep thinking about it, I keep getting drawn back to this, where I was driving home one evening after visiting my brother and sister-in-law. It's 1993. It would have to be 93 or 92, late July. And big wave of sightings going on in Topanga Canyon area had just kind of slowed down a little bit. I'm in Woodland Hills, which is nearby. And come around the corner around 3 miles an hour, and this ball of light drops down in front of my windshield, goes back and forth a few times, and then takes off. And I don't remember what happened. I'm guessing I drove home. Can't say I remember driving home, and I feel like I would have turned around. I was only 2 minutes out, from leaving my brother. And I'm really into UFOs at the time, and no, I forgot about this thing. I forgot about this incident for about a year, maybe some months, and just spontaneously recalled, like, this darn thing swooped down. So that could have been missing time. I wonder about that. But I don't have any scars. I don't have any clear incidents of missing time, except maybe that one. But it's in my family. My sister-in-law saw grays. My nephew saw humanoids. My other nephew, they both saw craft. So it's definitely within my family to some degree.
All right, let's move on here. Gary is asking about the UFO landings in Australian schools in the 60s. What's your opinion of those?
Yeah, they're incredible. The Westall High School incident in 1966 is the ultimate incident. Some 400 kids, I think it was, 300 to 400 kids, high school students, saw multiple objects come right down over the school. They're flying around. Planes show up. They're circling them. One of these things, possibly 2, lands in the grove of trees behind the school. A small group of kids run right up to it. They're surrounding it. It's the size of a small sports car, perfectly smooth metal. And they can feel the heat radiating off of it. It takes off straight up. And they dart away. I'm kind of shortening all this, but it was causing a complete panic at the school. And everyone comes trickling back. By this point, the police are there, the press is there, military shows up and shuts the press down. School's cut short that day. They pull everyone in the auditorium and tell them, if you think you saw a UFO, you didn't, and you're not to talk about this. They were pulling students into separate offices and questioning them and threatening them not to talk. It's a crazy incident. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing that they were telling all of these students to basically shut up.
Yeah, that can't be legal. I don't know. Researchers have tried to find official documentation of this. There's one guy who's really grabbed the hold of this case. Oh, gosh, his name. Shane. It's not Shane Hurd. It's Shane something. But man, oh man, he's gotten documentation. He's interviewed some 50, 100 witnesses who saw the landing traces. This is a real case. There's a memorial set up where this happened and had a huge effect. It's Australia's most famous incident.
All right, let's move on to Vivian's question. Vivster is asking, Preston, do you think that the current human extreme reaction to the coronavirus is enough proof to show future reaction to extraterrestrial knowledge being opened up to the public?
I I feel like we've got a very fear-based media, and they were selling fear on this virus pretty strong, and it was a very strong reaction. And like the War of the Worlds broadcast, which was designed to scare people, did effectively do that. So it depends on how this is rolled out from our media sources. And if they want to scare the pants off of people, yep, they will panic, you bet. But if they want to pull this out, in a way that's non-panic causing and just tell people the truth, we'll roll with it like we've rolled with everything else. So I think people are pretty vulnerable to what our leaders tell us. And this means we have to really step back and look at things objectively. I've written a lot about friendly ETs who heal people or rescue people. And sometimes people get pretty angry at me. They're like, listen, I'm being abducted. These guys are demonic. They're evil. How dare you tell me they're friendly? There's nothing altruistic about this. And have a similar reaction if I write about someone who's had a very negative encounter. And they're like, ETs don't abduct people. They don't anal probe and blah, blah, blah. So you can't please everybody. And we need to step back and look at this phenomena and how these guys are behaving. And honestly, their behavior falls under the same umbrella as human behavior. How ET entities behave and what they do is pretty much exactly what we do, or would do, certainly, if we were visiting another species. And their behavior is actually more benevolent than ours, ultimately.
Makes sense. I'm still sticking with Metamucil, just so you know.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to take the tinfoil idea. That might come in handy.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree with you. Preston, we only got about 90 seconds left with you tonight. And I want to say thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio once again. It's always been a pleasure to have you on the show, and we will do it again in the near future. What's up in your near future? What are you getting into? What are you getting involved with?
I've been putting out little videos on my YouTube channel, so having a lot of fun with that. Just putting out my research, working on a new book, very much like Inside UFOs and Onboard UFO Experiences. Going to put out another volume of Not From Here about some of the weirder cases. The cases a lot of researchers don't like to touch because they're outliers and don't fit the standard model. But I always like to dig deep, so yeah, I've got lots of stuff planned.
That sounds really exciting, man. Really exciting. And of course, you'll probably have another 120 books done by the end of 2021, I'm going to assume.
Yep, I'm trying to pull them out as fast as I can, by still having a quality product.
All right. And for you, I mean, this year, you're a guy who relies on a lot of conferences. How has it been this year for you without these conferences going on?
Yeah, I slipped one in January and just escaped that and had a few canceled, of course, and was able to do some remote ones, which have worked out surprisingly well. I miss the actual contact, and because there's just something different about that.
Yeah, no
so
kidding.
I'm looking forward to that for sure.
For sure, my friend. I want to say thank you once again for coming on Spaced Out Radio, as it's always a pleasure. Preston's website is prestondennett.weebly.com. If you want to check it on out, I highly suggest you do, because his books are worth it, everyone. You can find them on Amazon, Google, and all around the internet. Coming up next, we're going to join Vancouver and The Shift. We're going to talk about Halloween conjuring. And we got the thought of the day as well coming up. More Spaced Out Radio coming up right after this. Hey, buddy, I appreciate that. Let's give you a round of applause here.
Hey, that's awesome. Hey, I thought it was fun talking to you.
Always a pleasure, my friend, and thank you so much for doing this. And let us know when your next book comes out so we can get you on, okay?
For sure. Yeah, probably sometime next year.
Appreciate it, buddy. You have a good night, and thank you again for doing this.
Anytime. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Bye.
Good night. Preston Dennett, everyone. Preston Dennett. It's a good show. Another solid booking by Corrence the Booking Guy. That's the way he does things. It's all good. All good. All right. How we all doing? Guess we should pick ourselves a story from old Shirky Poo. Mm-hmm. Let's see what she has for us. Oh, that's a good one right there. We usually only have time for one. Oh, that scared me. Holy cow, did I jump. You scared the daylights out of me, man.
Boo, Dave Scott.
Oh, my God. I was getting ready for it because I usually do 1 to 2 stories for the news after I'm done with you guys. And the Skype thing came in really loud in my headphones. And oh, goodness. I tell you, I jumped about half an inch. Half an inch.
Oh, sorry about that, Dave.
Oh, that's all right.
You.
That's all right. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. How you doing tonight?
Oh, not bad. Not bad. How about you?
I'm doing all right. So, I got some sort of ghost-themed stories for us tonight.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to prepare for Halloween because there's a lot of people out there who kind of decide that all of a sudden Halloween is a good time to, play with Ouija boards and, go walking around cemeteries. And paranormal stuff can be scary, man. It's not fun.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely the time of a time of that season for sure. October is my favorite month, personally.
Yeah, you look like an October guy.
All right, Dave. We're with Shane tonight, and we'll be coming back in about 90 seconds here.
Yeah,
so hopefully that lines up with you there.
I got about 2 minutes here, and then I got to quickly re-intro the show. So at about 36, I'll be ready to go.
Okay, sounds good, Dave. All right, we will speak to you then.
All right, sounds good.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Dave.
Yep. All right, I guess we're hooked up with Vancouver, everyone. Hey, Aussie Rob, how's tomorrow looking? Please give us an update on your ham hocks as well. Because we always like a good ham hock around here. Let's see. Oh, God, that was a good show with Preston. In a vivarium, the alpha 8 is not asked if it's okay to do experiments on the other monkeys. However, we can. With the apes, when concerned, ET can communicate with us. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. I can play with the audio. Listen.
Paranormal. I will be hosting some great guests with topics that affect.
Hear that? Totally playing with the audio. That's why I roll around here. I'm a rebel that way. It's the hair. All right, here we go. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. Reminder to all of you that if you missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Now we're about to hang up and hang out with Vancouver. We're going to hook up with Shane here and the shift.
Listening to your sales pitch there, buddy.
What's happening, man?
You've always got the good sales pitch. Well, what's happening, Dave Scott, is I've got questions from listeners for you.
Okay.
I've got Good News Tuesday-ish here on the show. As your listeners are probably starting to get used to, we do this little thing about good news. So I thought, as I do with everybody else and our listeners too, what is some of the good news that's going on in Dave Scott's world that maybe you can share?
You know what? I actually have some good news today. My buddy Mike, all right, good guy, retired. He's one of these guys who retired like in his late 40s, early 50s. You know, the guy we all hate because they were able to do that?
I like that guy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he was bored. So he came over to my house this morning, and he split all of my firewood for me.
Really?
Yeah, I had like five truckloads of firewood dumped in front of my carport and on my lawn, and my buddy came over and said, you've been good to me lately. Let me do this for you.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
How amazing is that?
Yeah, how cool is that?
Good news, Dave. We have a bit of a tradition with that. Do you mind if we do that here, even though we're on your show too? Is that okay?
Let's do it. Let's do
the good news. Good news! That is amazing news.
Thank you. Appreciate
thanks,
it,
Mike. And here's let's throw it out to Mike and everyone else who's a leader for crushing it and being able to retire in their 40s. I love people like that. We should get Mike on the show. Let's bring Mike on the program. I don't know how he did it.
I don't know. He's probably sleeping.
Right.
He's one of these guys who gets up at like 4 in the morning. You know, I don't understand those people unless you're going fishing or something.
Yeah, unless you're going fishing or searching for Sasquatch. All right, so Spaced Out Radio, Dave. Last week we talked about, kind of this, are we being hypersensitive? Does fall create more access to ghosties? Is this one of these things that we're just paying more attention? And I think we sort of landed on, it's kind of in our nature to sort of open up to the ideas of the hauntings, the ghosties, all of these different things around this time of year. Is that kind of what you took from the conversation?
Yeah, kind of. You know, I mean, when we get into this type of year, going into October, people start planning their Halloween because Halloween has become, over the last, say, 20, 25 years, as big as Christmas when it comes to marketing and costumes. And Lord knows I miss the days of working in downtown Vancouver and walking on Robson and Granville on a Halloween night. That was always a beautiful thing for me, Nothing like the Roxy on a Halloween costume night. But that's for another conversation at another time.
That's a whole other conversation. That's good.
Yes. All right. But, a lot of people, too, all of a sudden get real interested in the paranormal. We start sharing our ghost stories, our UFO stories, our Bigfoot stories with people all around because it is the topic of the month. But here's the other thing. There's always people, too, who are like, let's go to a cemetery. Let's go, bring our cell phones and we'll download some ghost hunting apps and let's go see if we can find some ghosts. Let's bring out the Ouija board and let's do this. Ghost hunting, I will say this. There are tours all over the place that are in a controlled environment with people who we hope know what they're doing. But going out on your own and really trying to contact the dead can have some pretty bad outcomes if you don't know what you're doing. For instance, you're not really supposed to go and investigate a cemetery at night. I know the paranormal investigators listening to my show will be like, why not? Well, bad things can happen. You never know. You may trip and fall and hurt yourself. Maybe stub a toe on a grave marker or something like that. I don't know. But on a serious note, there's a good opportunity that if you all of a sudden start taking the paranormal to another level and you have not done it before, spiritual attachment is a big thing in the paranormal community. What that is when a ghost will attach itself to you and it will literally make you black out. You're going to do things that you don't really want to do. Maybe you get sick. Maybe you start vomiting for no reason and you just feel very ill. You feel heavy, lethargic. All right? No, I'm not talking about my diet making me do that. All right? This is truth. I've had it happen to me. It's not fun. Many paranormal investigators have been, attacked, if we put it that way, by spiritual entities. So the big forewarning out there is, if all of a sudden you're trying to impress that girl or that guy on Halloween by giving them a spooky evening, call up your local paranormal team and see if you could go out for a tour with them, rather than jumping on the Ouija board or trying to summon the devil through the spirit boxes or whatever it may be. There is a lot of really cool things that can happen in the paranormal. It is a very interesting community. It is a very interesting study to focus on if that's what you want to have your attention. But as with everything, it is safety first, and that's what we need to focus on.
Well, before we get into that, I've got to ask this question because you brought it up. Ouija boards.
Yes.
Real or not real?
Personally, I think they're real. I'll tell you a quick story.
The interaction real.
I know you like my stories. I was with 4 others. We were using a spirit board. This a number of years ago, back in the mid-2010s. Is that proper English? The mid-2010s? I don't even know.
I think so.
Okay.
I think we can't figure out the years all the time. I mean, I think the way that we say some of those things is just dumb. So yeah, you give her.
Okay,
you take your 2010s. You stand tall and proud, my friend.
We're sitting in my friend's house. It's a small 2-bedroom type of log house in Mission, British Columbia. And it's 10:30 at night. And we're sitting at their kitchen table. And in between the kitchen and the kitchen table, there is a wood stove that heats up the house. And it's 10:30 at night. It's a warm spring night. And all of a sudden, the fireplace is going. And so my friend...
It wasn't going?
No. My friend says to me, who started the fire in the fireplace? And we're all kind of like, no, none of us. And he asked all the kids in the house, and they were like, no, we didn't touch it. You tell us not to touch it, we don't touch it. And all of a sudden, the spirit board on the planchette starts moving in a circle. Because my friend stated that he hadn't had a fire going since 9:30 that morning. There was not even any wood in there. There's some paper and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, the planchette starts moving. And my friend's girlfriend at the time, she goes, "Did you start the fire?" Immediately, the planchette takes us to yes. So she asks, why? Spells out, I was cold.
Wow. That's fun.
That was a little weird. That was a little weird.
That.
Yeah.
Well, I had one that happened for me that I'll happily share too.
Please.
Is that not with the spirit board or Ouija board or anything like that. Is that I was in my house. I was living in Carstairs, which is just north of Calgary, about 30 minutes, and a new house, not an old house. And I would hear these voices, and I was all kinds of crazy stuff. Many different stories of things going on in that house. But there was this one that was very, very clear, and there was this voice, and it was a man's voice. And I was kind of going through a bunch of different scenarios. So one of them was, and I'll save some for other days, but one of them was at nighttime, my kids were just toddlers, but they could walk and they could, open a door. And so I was sleeping and I couldn't figure out if I was dreaming or not. And I would hear the door rattle, the doorknob. So what I would do is I was like, go to bed, whatever, try to ignore it. And then I finally got so fed up, I was like pissed off dad mode. And I was like, grrr, and I get up and I stomp, and I rip open the door expecting to see my kid wide awake in the middle of the night playing a joke. There's nobody there. And it happened again and again and night after night after night. So I finally went into my son's room. My daughter was in a crib, she couldn't walk yet. And he was sound asleep. The next morning, I was downstairs. I was by myself in the house. And this is in broad daylight. There was this big big booming voice from upstairs in the hallway where the door is for that. Ooh, I just gave me shivers just telling the story. And it was kind of inaudible, but there was a big voice there. And I walked around, I was like, hello? And then there was this big laugh, this thing. And it wasn't like a movie, scary, corny, but it was a big laugh and a big voice. And all I did was, a friend of mine's clairvoyant, and I said, she told me what to do. She said, look, all you have to do is just tell them that they're not welcome and all that stuff. So I just said, look, you're scaring my family. Here's the deal. If you want to, you're welcome to be here as long as you don't scare the children and you don't scare my family. If you're here to scare us, you go now. You're not welcome here. And I just kind of big, strong voice tried to do what, my buddy Carlin said, and I threw it out there, and it all stopped and went away. And so I thought it was a dream, all the things going on in that space upstairs. I really did. And the audience can think I'm crazy, whatever. I'd had all kinds of these sort of spiritual moments. And, but the reality is when it happened in broad daylight, and it immediately responded to the way that I spoke in it, that to me was 100%. I was like, okay, yeah, the doorknob, that's not a dream. That was all real. And then it went away and never came back again. When I said, if you're here to scare the family, you're not welcome here. And then it left. And that was my first real negative experience. I've had lots of positive experiences, but that was my first real scary negative experience where it was very clear to me that something else was going on.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow. We got to have you on the show one night to talk about this with us.
I can tell you all kinds of ghost stories. Yeah, I can. I talk about all kinds of things. So you used the word conjuring when we spoke earlier today on the email with the gang here. So help me understand the difference, because conjuring sort of, to me, comes up for creating. It's like creating it from nothing. Like maybe there was nothing going on, but people accidentally inspire it, create it, or ignite it, if you will. So how did conjuring matter for you in this conversation?
It mattered because a lot of people who have no idea what the paranormal is like, but it comes Halloween, and all of a sudden they want to become the spooky friend or have a good scare or something. And when you conjure up that type of energy, that type of paranormal activity, you really don't know what you're bringing across that threshold. In the paranormal, many people call it the veil. Okay, and when you cross that line and you haven't put your intentions out that you would like to talk, because you can't just sit there and say, I'd like to talk to Aunt Wilma, who left me $1 million in her will. That doesn't work. You could try, but the chances are you might not be able to get her. You don't know about prayer. You don't know about, setting your intentions or protecting yourself to make sure that extra or any type of evil entity or not so good entity comes through in that communication. That's the difficulty of it, and if you don't know how to close the doors, like on a Ouija board, they always say, say goodbye. All right. Or if you are channeling spirits, you don't know what's going to enter your body to chat with them. And you having an intuitive friend, you probably know all about channeling. And no, it's not flipping through the channels on your TV as fast as you can. All right? You have to be able to understand that if you don't know how to close the doors, if you don't know how to say goodbye, if you don't know how to protect yourself and the people that you are surrounded with at that time, the energy that you conjure up can actually stay with you. This is where a lot of people have bad luck. We always hear, that person walks around with a black cloud over their head all the time. This could be why.
Okay, that's very clear.
Yeah, I tried.
We're going to see more of this stuff through. No, that's very clear. I like it. Are we going to see more of this stuff leading into Halloween, you think? Do your listeners often share these kinds of stories with you on Spaced Out Radio?
I get every day. Every day I have people sharing stories with me. It's amazing. We're going to be adding those type of stories to our YouTube channel pretty soon. I just have to figure out how to edit. Once I get the editing stuff down, it's easy to edit audio. But when you got a face for radio and you've spent, as long as I have in radio, you in radio, audio's easy. But when you get into the whole video side, you have to have graphics and everything. It's just a pain in the butt.
We get lost.
You have some questions.
I have a listener question here for you, and I know this as being a synthetic chemical. So I don't know any connection other than that. Muscovium, which is element 115.
Yes.
And so the listener asks this question, says, for Dave Scott, has he ever seen evidence of element 115? Well, I mean, scientifically there's evidence there, but have you ever seen it in regards to some of your conversations about future technologies? And from that perspective, I think he's talking about visitors and this element 115. Has it landed in your lap?
No. The only time we ever hear anything about element 115 is when it comes to Bob Lazar and whether or not he was allegedly able to smuggle some out of Area 51 when he worked there before he got busted. That is only a rumor, and Bob still hasn't confirmed or denied if that happened. I think he likes the story. All right. But as for it helping in propulsion of UFO aircraft, it's only a wild theory, and I hate to be the debunker on this. My Twitter crowd's going to hate that because they like the woo. All right, but it's literally about Bob Lazar, and that's all we usually ever hear about it when it comes to UFOs. So I'm sorry to break your heart.
Now, if you want it, no, that's good. It's a good question to ask. Thank you very much. There was no name attached to the text message, but it's absolutely a good question to ask. Why not do that? Now, just to be clear, for Moscovium and the element 115, it's synthetic chemical, and its atomic number is 115. That's where it comes from. That's what I do know about it. Now, if you do want to Google it, even Wikipedia does have two things to it. There is a material science and science fiction article that is related on there that does get into some of that that you were talking about, Dave Scott, with the different pieces of that. So if people want to learn more about element 115 and where that lands, you can look into. There is direct conspiracy theories, of course, tangled around that one. And Dave Scott says that he hasn't seen it yet. Dave, thank you so much for sharing the time. I appreciate you being on, man.
Always a pleasure, buddy. We'll talk to you next week.
We'll talk to you next week, maybe through the course of October. Maybe we're going ghosty for a couple of weeks.
Let's do it. I'm there for you, buddy. I am there for you.
Yeah, I love it. Spaced Out Radio, spacedoutradio.com. Get all the links. Check out the shows and the podcasts to right there, Dave Scott. Thank you so much. 877
Have a good night, guys. All right, let's get to the news, shall we? And this is how it ends. Oh, yeah. All right, let's get Captain Shirk's Newswire because we know we love the shirky poo around here. We only got a couple minutes left. All right, here's a funny one. Albert Siplin, the proud new owner of a Tesla Model X, videoed himself cruising down a highway near Henderson, North Carolina, showing off the vehicle's sophisticated autopilot feature. During the clip shot on September 27th, Siplin is sitting in the passenger seat, relaxing as the car glides down the road unassisted, maintaining speed and lane position without any intervention. I was nervous my first time doing it, he said. It is worth noting that Tesla doesn't recommend this. Why would they? Tesla website states, current autopilot features require active driver supervision and do not make the vehicle autonomous. There have been multiple incidents of Tesla vehicles crashing while autopilot was engaged, with an investigation finding earlier this year that an Apple employee who died in 2018 after his Tesla hit a concrete barrier was playing a smartphone game at the time of the crash. And of course, Shirky Poo throws in one of these horrible, horrible Guinness records because she knows I hate them. A Pakistani man has broken a record by cracking 254 walnuts on his head. Isn't that nice? Yes, he went down a row, headbutting all of the lifeless walnuts, trying to knock some sense into him. The only sense this made was he got his name in the Guinness Book of Records. Thank you, Shirky Poo. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. What do you think aliens want from us humans? Veteran Marty on Twitter. Yes, we love our veterans around here. Thank you for your service, Marty. He says, I once heard that the aliens like planet Earth because we have good beef and produce. Ron says it's beer. Caroline believes it's for entertainment purposes only. Quinoa says our gold, and then puts a member or gold member on there. That's hilarious. Mondak, same thing that we want. Tag and release animals. Ryan, can you be specific? What type of alien? I said, one that can grow a mustache, Ryan. Yeah, I went there. Jessica believes they want everything. DNA, embryos, our soul. Marley's, absolutely nothing, or they already would have started talking to us. Cheryl, they would like us to become enlightened. Tim, to be left alone. Doesn't make sense. They're coming to us, Tim. Alex, to stop associating with them because the Q woke and Karens out there are screwing up the version of disclosure and their mythical deep state that only exists in their little bitty minds. You know, Alex made that comment without a shirt on. And, of course, Brian Bowden with his 142,000 podcasts that he hosts every day. Clearly, aliens want more podcasts. Thank you to everybody participating in the Thought of the Dave. We will do it all again tomorrow. As well, a big thank you to Captain Shirk for the SOR Newswire. And, of course, to Shane from the shift, talking some ghosties there. What the hell's a ghostie? And, of course, Preston Dennett for hanging out and talking some UFO stories with us. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thaw rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms on Spreaker, YouTube, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club at our website, and hashtag Spaced Out Radio for all the snarkers and snarkettes who are wanting to snark the night away. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, we have docked the Woo train for the night, but tomorrow, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we have room for them too. Have a great night. Good night.